When we looked at this question of equality, this is some statistics that were done by the Improvement Unit, which works for COSLA and for many other parts of government. And they have managed to pull out some really shocking statistics that show that if you took the cohort of the 10% poorest neighbourhoods in Scotland, and then you took a cohort which is the 10 wealthiest, these are the outcomes. And the outcomes don't vary, they don't vary. They're not a bit up here and a bit down there. There are no surprises. If you live in the poorest 10% neighbourhoods, you are constantly 2 to 3 times worse off in outcomes right across the board. That's it. Now, I can remember reading a thing by an American journalist some time ago who came across here, and again, you'd think sometimes perhaps somebody who come from the United States would have a bit of nerve getting upset about what he saw here. But still, coming to Scotland and seeing what should have been a prosperous country, perhaps with the preoccupations that exiled Scots in America have, and being astonished that we were so unmoved by the difficulties around us. And it is astonishing. We somehow don't seem to think that these inequalities can be shifted without losing out ourselves. And now, a lot of you will have read The Spirit Level. How many folk have read The Spirit Level book? Richard Wilkinson and Kate Pickett. It's a great book. 30 years worth of statistics that show that everybody is worse off in countries which have extreme income gaps. And this is something I want to just probe a little further. Here we are again. It may be hard for you to see, but this is about birth weight. And in the 10% poorest areas, 2.8% of babies are born underweight. In richer areas, it's 1.1%. Now, this is work that the Centre for Population Health have done. And again, I suspect you won't see some of the writing at the bottom. But what they did was they took, and they tried to, if you like, take deprivation out of the equation by comparing parts of Glasgow, Liverpool and Manchester, which had equal deprivation indices, and then looked at mortality across a range of different diseases. And you see, what you see there is what you might expect. And this is the progenitor, if you like, of the Scottish effect, where practically every part of Scottish society is dying younger than its counterparts in England, right across the board. It's most extreme, and there's least wriggle room in the most deprived areas, but it's not a phenomenon that is confined to them. What you see on the left is, well, in fact, what I should explain is the blue line goes through the average for all the 3 cities. So where you see a purple column rising above the blue line, that is the excess mortality of Glaswegians. Now, you'd expect somehow that it would be perhaps smoking, it would be lung cancer, it would be heart disease, it would be those ailments which we have learned are big problems for big cities, and for Glasgow in particular. It's not. The 3 columns on the left, where the Glasgow average is not that different from the other 2 cities, show you all cancers, circulatory system problems and lung cancer. When you begin to move substantially over the top, and this then surely is the bulk of the Scottish effect of early mortality, what you're seeing are external causes, which is usually violence, suicide, alcohol and drug misuse. Now, you can characterise those. Of course, you could argue that many classic ailments are the results of all sorts of perhaps malnutrition, perhaps other aspects that are actually socially caused. But suicide, violence, drug and alcohol misuse, these are social, if you like, these are social ailments. These are the most tangible signs that we can have of complete hopelessness. And this is not okay, because actually, everybody is to some degree carrying that gene. As long as we expect this kind of inequality and shrug it off, we think this is par for the course, well, it's like this, we just have to put up with it. Having spent a lot of time in Nordic countries, no. And actually, that shames us to think that that's our lot. We can do far better than this, but we need to understand what's holding us back. And at the moment, again, in the independence debate, it can be very hard to have a frank conversation about this, because obviously it's in the interest of many people to say, we're actually doing dandy, we're fine, and we're getting better. We're not. In many, many respects, we're not. And we need to untangle this with a little bit of honesty. Now, here's the thing. There's a Jew called Hofstede, who was a Dutch sociologist, who is a Dutch sociologist, and he did a ranking of countries in the 1970s using employees of IBM. Now, I'll grant you, you're immediately thinking, and, you know, IBM are not exactly representative of the entire population of any country. In that respect, they formed an interesting cohort to compare across 52 nations, because they were the same sort of people actually in each country. But anyway, their attitudes, their lifestyles, everything about them was tested. And Hofstede created some rankings to try and explain why certain countries are certain ways. And he came up with a masculine and feminine axis. Now, by this, for example, the United Kingdom is a masculine country. Sweden, by comparison, is a feminine country. And Scotland, if it were to become independent tomorrow, would be masculine to its bootstraps. Now, what does that mean? This doesn't really mean that the guys run everything. It means something quite different. The way that he tried to explain this was that a masculine society tends to judge success by the progress of an elite. You'll hear this all the time. Never mind that we're a couch potato society, never mind we have chronic obesity problems, never mind that we seem to be eating our wealth. As long as we've got a bunch of Olympians who can beat the whatever of every other comer to the Olympic Games, then somehow the UK is all right. We're more interested in where the average is. And it isn't good enough that there are some points of excellence. It matters that the whole cohort moves and progresses together. Now, there's plenty more in the book about Hofstede because it's a very interesting set of comparisons, and if you read down the list of masculine and feminine types of quality in each nation, I think, well, you see what you think, but I was recognising Scotland pretty strongly in a lot of the characteristics. So you'll see here that if you were to take things like GDP, which is a classic measurement of wealth, it can give you one outcome, but what tends to be more closely aligned is whether a country has a feminine ranking with Hofstede and whether it does very well in child well-being. Now actually, that maps not too badly onto GDP anyway. So what I'm trying to say is, what kind of country do we want to be? If we want to keep looking and saying we've got a couple of excellent people, a couple of Celtic Tigers, a couple of Donald Trumps, if we want to say that that's some kind of measurement of anything, rock on, because that's the way we look at life at the moment. But actually, wanting the whole cohort to move on together is the kind of thing that transforms society, not leaving people behind, and we've left too many people behind.